Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace and beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Brahmadas, if you're there, please sign on. I'd like you to serve as reader this morning, this afternoon, I mean, if you're able. He apparently is not there. Haima, I'm sure you have.
Sure, Brother Shankara. I have the book and I just need to, I remember following up last week.
So do you know where we are?
That's the thing I'm looking at. I think I missed last week.
There's Shailesh.
Okay.
No, that's Stephen. Okay, I don't know. Brahmadas, we said, no, he's still there. Okay, so have you found your place?
I can start at 21. I think that's where we were. We were before 19, 20. We finished.
No. Hang on here. Let me pull it up here. I got an email from
Jeff, maybe? Jeff is the one reader.
Yeah, Jeff. I got an email from Jeff. Let me pull it up here and I'll tell you where we are.
Okay, I was listening in the car last week.
There's
somewhere around 33, 34.
Oh, yeah. We went up that far? Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even, no, I don't think we'd gotten to 35.
No. We didn't get that far. I remember about 20s. We were
Hang on. There's no reason to fuss about it because I have something from Jeff here that tells me exactly where we are. So I just have to scroll down till I find it. I get so many emails.
34, maybe it's 34.
Stephen thinks it's 34. My
34.
My Kindle automatically opens up to the last page I was on.
Oh, how nice.
That's what it is.
Yeah, 34. I wrote it down somewhere. 34. It could be. We'll let Stephen said 34 too. Okay.
I still haven't found it. So if we're going to say 34, let's just start with 34.
Yes. Okay.
If Stephen says 34, I'm sure he's a good page marker himself. So
I have it written 34 too after I came home. Okay, Brother Shankara, you want me to go ahead and start now or wait a few more minutes? Or
No.
Just go ahead.
Hang on just a moment.
Okay.
Let's just say, is there anything that anyone would like to address before we start reading? As we always do, we invite you to clarify anything or make a comment about anything that you feel like you'd like to process. That's where this is a class, not a lecture. So anything at all from anyone? Apparently not.
Okay.
So please read on.
Okay.
I'm Aditi.
We are on page 70 in the book. If it is the same book, it could be different, but we are on number 34.
So we're chapter 2, shloka 34, sutra 34, chapter 2. So whatever book you have,
start
That's
from
what you want to
34.
find.
Okay. 34. The mind may also be calmed by expulsion and retention of the breath. The word used here by Patanjali is prana. Prana actually means energy. The vital energy which we draw into ourselves from the surrounding universe. That's what is called prana. Since the energy is obtained primarily by breathing, we may translate prana as breath in this particular context. Later on, we shall learn more about the system of breathing exercises to which Patanjali refers. It is known as pranayama. But without going into details, it is necessary to make two general observations here. First, we must note that Patanjali sees control of the mind as psychophysical problem. In this, he agrees with modern scientific thought. Studies of breathing have shown that the method of respiration affects the whole organism. Calmness can actually be induced by deep, steady inhalations and exhalations.
Could I stop us
Yes,
just
ma'am.
for a second?
Sure.
I think you're reading from an earlier chapter.
34, mine may also, is this already done?
No, this is chapter 234. We were talking
Let
about
me see
control
which
of the
chapter
mind.
it is. I don't know, chapter.
I thought we were the 34 that I'm at says the obstacles to yoga, such as acts of violence and untruth, may be directly. It's
Are we
just,
sure we're on the same book? It's How to Know God.
yes, when I searched what you're reading, it went to a number 34, but it was like it was on my page 68 as opposed to my page 148.
So, in other words, you're reading 34, chapter 1.
Yeah.
Oh, Haima, you need to go. This is what happens when we lose our reader.
Chapter 2.
You need to go to chapter 2, shloka 34.
Chapter 2 is page 99, Brother Shankara. I'm not sure whether we reached that far.
Yes, dear.
We did.
Yes,
We did.
long ago.
I'll read.
We've been reading in chapter 2 for at least 3 weeks.
Okay.
Maybe more.
If you've just been listening, then
You-
you don't know what the next. Do you want me to read? Because I've got it already pulled up.
Note
please,
that it
please.
is on page 154, the obstacles to yoga. That's what.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Haima, let Cindy read.
Okay.
She's got it pulled up. Sorry for the confusion.
Oh, I see that. Yeah, chapter 2.
I was going,
Exactly.
All
Yes,
right, dear.
yes. I see that 154, 34, chapter 2. Do you want to go ahead and read this?
My inability to see
Oh, no, that's
really
okay.
hampers
It was
these things.
my
All
misunderstanding.
right,
too,
Cindy,
yeah.
please go ahead.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Okay. Forget everything we just heard about.
Yes. Yes, we already
No,
heard that before.
Don't forget anything we just heard.
Remember.
That is not where we're starting.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, you're right.
Chapter 2, Shloka 34. Okay.
Mhm.
The obstacles to yoga, such as acts of violence and untruth, may be directly created or indirectly caused or approved. They may be motivated by greed, anger, or self-interest. They may be small or moderate or great, but they never cease to result in pain and ignorance. One should overcome distracting thoughts by remembering this. Do you want me to repeat the shloka?
I think it would be worthwhile. Yes, it was read last week, but and the commentary was read last week. But now I remember very clearly. But I think it bears repeating because this is such an important commentary. This is such an important gesture toward ahimsa, harmlessness.
Mm-hmm.
So please go ahead.
Okay, plus I noticed that Jeff always reads the shloka twice, which is helpful for me.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I shall read 34 again. The obstacles to yoga, such as acts of violence and untruth, may be directly created or indirectly caused or approved. They may be motivated by greed, anger, or self-interest. They may be small or moderate or great, but they never cease to result in pain and ignorance. One should overcome distracting thoughts by remembering this. Shall I go ahead to the
Commentary, please.
commentary? Everything we do, say, or think, or even indirectly cause or passively sanction, will inevitably produce consequences, good, bad, or composite. And these consequences will react in some measure upon ourselves. Our most secret ill wishes toward others, our remotest permission of evil done to others, can only end by hurting us, by increasing our own ignorance and pain. This is an absolute law of nature. If we could remember it always, we should learn to control our tongues and our thoughts.
Okay, just hold on. The Swami would not have said so absolutely and categorically, this is an absolute law of nature, if he did not know it to be true. So there's no way around this. Our left minds will try, as W.C. Fields said on his deathbed, he was reading the Bible, and he said he was looking for loopholes. There are no loopholes to this. What we do has consequences, karma. And so if we do practice any kind of violence toward others in our thoughts, in our deeds, or in our speech, it will have consequences. And the same thing is true of untruth. The Swami is now addressing the harmful effects of violence, but he'll get to the truth aspect of it in a few moments. So before we go on, is there any comment from your own wisdom or experience, or any question or concern that this particular principle, the fact that if we do commit acts of violence, however minor, however major, against any other being in the universe, and Holy Mother even addressed this to a broom. Her niece threw a broom back into the closet, and Mother said, "Don't do that. Don't do that." Why? Because it is consciousness. It is made of consciousness. And violence to that is just as harmful, no, not as harmful, but it is harmful. If you threw a human being, that's a different story. But so in any event, Holy Mother extended it even to what seems to us to be an inanimate object. Yes, dear.
Oh, Heimer, were you going to say something?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Sorry, I didn't tell.
Oh, I'm glad that the Swami, made that sentence stand out about the absolute law of nature. I just a few days ago, I wrote in my little morning journal, is karma so hard to believe? It's only cause and effect on a cosmic scale.
Yes.
And it is, science, cause and effect.
Yes. Yep.
Law of nature. Yeah.
All of those things. So anything else? Thank you, Cindy. Anything else from anyone about this idea of the perpetration of violence toward others resulting in our own ignorance, an increase in our own ignorance and pain.
Yeah, I'm kind of intrigued by the fact that Swami goes into qualifying that it may be small or moderate or great. So I understand the principle and the law, but why is he adding the small, the moderate, or great?
I think that's
to say-
actually Patanjali. That's actually in the shloka itself. Patanjali remarks on this. Because our actions, they don't harm universe. Universe is invulnerable. They harm us. Our actions harm us by increasing our ignorance and pain. So even a small, moderate, these things will result in a small or moderate increase in our own ignorance and pain. That's what the Swami is saying when he expounds this shloka.
Thank you.
Anything still unclear?
No, that's clear. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? And thank you for that. It's important for us to focus on the fact that no matter how minor it may seem to us, just impetuously throwing the broom into the closet, this is an insult to consciousness. It is a harmful act, not so much to the thing itself, but by doing that, we're betraying our ignorance and increasing it. Anything else from anyone?
Brother?
Yes, Stephen.
Yes, I would like your thoughts on, there's a quote. I know you're familiar with Eckhart Tolle, and in his book, The Power of Now, he says, the need to be right is a form of violence. And I'm just wondering what you think about that. I've certainly reflected on it some myself in the context of our very polarized society. The need,
Yes.
He says, the need to be right is a form of violence.
And he is so correct. If we think about the prayer that opens this, may no misunderstandings arise amongst us. The misunderstandings would come from one person having one opinion or one understanding, and another person having another opinion or another understanding. If they quarreled about it, everything would be disrupted. Their own ability to concentrate on what we're studying would be disrupted, and it would disrupt the entire class. So this desire to be right, it is, if you go into the 12 steps of the 12-step programs, Alcoholics Anonymous and so on, this is one of the things that they really point to, that this absolute desire to be the one who is right is causing you pain because you feel wronged. If you simply are calm and say, I have my opinion, the other person has their opinion, we don't even have to agree to disagree, which is a kind of disingenuous statement. But we can simply leave it be. The fact of the matter will emerge in our experience. Whether we're right or wrong will emerge. We don't have to insist on it. Any kind of insistence, except insistence on the absolute truth, which is part of Jnana Yoga, satyagraha, insistence on the scriptural truth, but not insisting that other people think that way, just simply that you insist to yourself that I must think this way. That's the only place for insistence. And believe me, I'm speaking from experience here. In my younger days, I was very, very much a prisoner of this because I was often in leadership positions, and I would insist that things be done my way. And I was once told by someone, you're kind of like a bulldozer. And that was very sobering to me. And so I learned over time to moderate that behavior because it was causing me to be at odds with the people that I was nominally supposed to be in a leadership role with.
I was listening to something this morning. It was from the doctor. I can't remember his name. He's famous. It was an older video, but he was talking about how children, when they're little, who suffer trauma and or neglect, and people telling them, they're no good, they're not right, they can't do, that they often spend the rest of their lives puffing themselves up and saying, and just holding on to, I am right.
Yes.
And
yes.
that often comes out of childhood trauma. But also, Stephen asked the question, and also in the context of the polarization of the, people in society and the world right now. And on a personal environment basis, what you're saying is true, about being right, how, and not you, but Patanjali and Swami. But at the same time, you can learn to be right in your rightness without fighting someone unnecessarily about it. But there's a lot of injustice and a lot of mean, bad people in power. I mean, it's just, the case. And so that's where it's important to practice this, but not to just, not being right, not having to be right, all does not mean just backing down from situations that call for whatever just actions you can take.
Well, yes, that's a whole different issue where somebody is encroaching on your, where they're, no, we must not be a doormat for others. But it's not a question then of being right, as it is a question of, as is taught in that class that is still going on, I'm not getting what I need from this situation. And so please either give me what I need or leave me alone. This is the way it's taught in that class on congenial conversation, getting along with one another. So this is this a dicey issue? Is this a complex issue? Yes, it is. But as Stephen pointed out, Eckhart Tolle was very categorical about that.
Brother, I think your comment about agreeing to disagree kind of triggered something in my mind. I mean, in my professional life, agreeing to disagree and kind of putting things together and kind of sliding through the situation was probably a good thing in my dictionary of behavior. But what you're pointing out is very strong, that in spiritual life, that is not acceptable. And so that was the thought.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you're right. Uh, uh, this in professional life, this was this. Well, let's agree to disagree and go forward. Is a very good tactical way of dealing with things when there is disagreement, and the person in charge, the supervising or managing person, should then say, well, we'll see what actually happens in practice here. We'll see who's right by working it out. And yeah, exactly. Anything else from anyone?
We're talking about agreeing to disagree. I often take my cat here, Shiva, to Starbucks and work, and the Jehovah's Witnesses approached me and they worked on me for about half an hour. And at the end, I finally said, well, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with me. I don't think we agree, and I think we have to leave it at that. And they left me with the like, my God, have mercy on your soul. But I think that's the right approach. I think we just have to say, well, I don't think we agree on all points, and we have to leave it at that. Isn't that an appropriate response?
And their parting comment is so terribly ignorant and condescending.
That's how I felt. I felt like I've kind of just been put down here, like I'm a heathen or
Well,
something.
that, like, like you're wrong, but we can't save you, so
Exactly.
mercy on you.
Yeah, that's how I'm glad you see that, because that's how I was feeling. Like, I've just been put down here.
How pathetic, really, for them to take that attitude. But that's what they're taught. So
yeah, there's some organizations that feel this need. I think their leaders tell them you must constantly proselytize, and that's what they're told to do.
That's exactly it. And as Jesus said so often in the gospel, yea, and verily, they shall have their reward. Thank you, Brahmadas, for bringing that up. Yes, those evangelistic people will try and do that. And they're not limited to evangelistic Christians. There are evangelistic Muslims and evangelistic Hindus and evangelistic Buddhists. So it's not just limited to one tradition.
And evangelistic Scientologists, I found out too, unfortunately. But yeah, I think the right, I mean, we need to come up with an appropriate response to, like, resolve this. And I think it's just, thank you for sharing your thoughts with me. I'm not sure we agree on all.
Well, that's exactly. Thank you for sharing. Right.
But you also, I mean, everybody's got to do what works for them. I'm not saying what you did was just fine, but I don't have time to sit and listen to people.
Right. So I think you also want to say, I don't want to waste your time and mine. And yeah, I think that's
I just tell them, look, I have my own beliefs and my own religion, and I respect that you have yours, but you're not going to change my mind. So have a nice day. I mean,
I can tell you've been proselytized too, Cindy.
oh my
I can
God.
see you
Yeah, and they come to my door a lot, and
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I don't always do that. Depends on my mood. And one time the two guys rode up on the bicycles to because there's a Mormon church right down the street from me. And I don't know if they weren't very experienced yet at trying to do their shtick, but we ended up talking about music and guitars and and it was great. And they never did say anything about, I mean, they maybe said one little thing about religion or, but they did say, if you ever need any help around your yard or anything, let us know. We'd be happy to come. I said, all right.
No, they are willing to help you. One time one helped me do some yard work while the other one proselytized me. That's how they work you.
Right. Anyway.
All right, dears. Anything else on this particular point or anything else that we've been discussing? Okay, Cindy, please read on.
to my thing here. Okay. Shloka 35. When a man becomes steadfast in his abstention from harming others, then all living creatures will cease to feel enmity in his presence. Again, 35. When a man becomes steadfast in his abstention from harming others, then all living creatures will cease to feel enmity in his presence. Shall I go on or shall we?
Well, I'll just comment. If you want to know exactly what is meant by these words, what Patanjali is talking about, just study the life of Saint Francis of Assisi. Not only did all living creatures not feel enmity in his presence, they flocked to him because of his steadfastness in not practicing harmfulness, and in fact, practicing compassion and love.
I think we feel that too a little bit. Like Swami Yogatmananda, in his presence, you feel peace. You just don't want to hurt anybody.
No question, no question. Okay, dear, you read on.
Okay. Yeah, St. Francis came up immediately for me too. Okay, here is the commentary on 35. We are accustomed to use the word harmless in a rather derogatory sense. It has become almost synonymous with ineffectual. Yet the perfected harmlessness of the saint.
I'm in class, I cannot speak now.
Yet the perfected harmlessness of the saint is by no means ineffectual. It is a positive psychological force of tremendous power. When a man has truly and entirely renounced violence in his own thoughts and in his dealings with others, he begins to create an atmosphere around himself within which violence and enmity must cease to exist because they find no reciprocation. Animals, too, are sensitive to such an atmosphere. Wild beasts may be temporarily cowed with whips, but they can only be rendered harmless by the power of genuine harmlessness, as every good trainer knows. A lady who was accustomed to handle deadly snakes used to explain, "You see, they know I won't hurt them." The test of ahimsa, harmlessness, is absence of jealousy, said Swami Vivekananda. The so-called great men of the world may all be seen to become jealous of each other for a small name, for a little fame, and for a few pieces of gold. So long as this jealousy exists in a heart, it is far away from the perfection of ahimsa.
And of course, we can all think of examples of all of that. That story of the lady and the snakes, by the way, is in a book. If you want to read it, it's called Kinship, K-I-N, Kinship with All Life. And it is a remarkable book by a man who learned in his own life to not only perfect ahimsa, but the ability to communicate with all living creatures, all living beings. It's a really remarkable little book. Anything else from anyone? Okay, dear, please read on.
Okay, we are at Shloka 36. When a man becomes steadfast in his abstention from falsehood, he gets the power of obtaining for himself and others the fruits of good deeds without having to perform the deeds themselves. I'll read it again, 36. When a man becomes steadfast in his abstention from falsehood, he gets the power of obtaining for himself and others the fruits of good deeds without having to perform the deeds themselves.
Now, I need to tell you something, because last week I unintentionally, that is to say, without sufficient attention to what I was doing, told you a falsehood. And that is that I had heard from Swami Swahananda himself directly that he came into this condition when he was head of the New Delhi Center in India, that he began to be able to cause things to happen simply by thinking or saying them. And he prayed to the Holy Mother to withdraw this power, and she did. I said I heard that directly from him. That is not precisely true. What happened is I heard about it from two of his disciples who had heard about it in India, in Belrumat. They asked the Swami about it, and he confirmed it. And so they told me that story. I then went to here's what I heard from the Swami. I then myself went to the Swami and said, this is what Prasoon and Deepak told me. Is this true? And he simply said, yes, it's true. So that's what I heard from the Swami. He did not tell me, and would not have. As I reflected on it, I thought the Swami never would have told me something of that nature about himself. The Swamis just don't speak that way. So, at least not in my experience. So that's the correction of what I told you last week. I didn't hear the narrative from the Swami. I heard it from two of his disciples, and then confirmed it with the Swami. Thank you for allowing me to tell you that.
True confessions of Vedanta.
Well, it weighed on me that I had told you something that was so. Anyway.
But we all get confused, especially these days, and the older we get, and
Well, this probably
memory is not perfect.
Well, this probably happened 30 years ago. Anyhow, but read the shloka again, and let me just say that I believe the Swami did gain this power that is described in the shloka by being steadfast in truthfulness.
Okay, 36. When a man becomes steadfast in his abstention from falsehood, he gets the power of obtaining for himself and others the fruits of good deeds without having to perform the deeds themselves. I'd like to make a little comment, though, about, we talk about falsehood, truth being the, what is it?
Austerity of this age.
Right, this austerity of this age, which, boy, howdy, that's easy to see. But I think, again, there's this thing of having an honest heart and an honest being. I think some people can get overly concerned with having every little detail of something they're recalling correct. And that can get back into that I'm right business, because I remember correctly and you don't. And it's, there's this heart aspect of honesty as well. not saying something that's going to hurt somebody, even if it's true. And, what are the important truths? I'd say that, sorry.
You're absolutely right. And it is steadfastness is something of the heart, not of the mind. The left mind is not capable of real steadfastness. It is too affected by the gunas. We may have the best of intentions, but this is why we have to practice spiritual disciplines in order to deepen our understanding coming from the heart. And it is the heart that controls the mind, not the mind controlling the heart. The mind will restrain the mind from being too erratic over time. This is what is meant by calmness of mind, and ultimately results in the calmness that is the aim of yoga. The mind becomes so calm in the presence of the truth, and nothing but the truth, so to speak, as represented by spiritual understanding through contemplation, concentration, and meditation, that the thoughts cease and the aim of yoga is accomplished. Anything else from anyone? Okay, please read on, dear.
The sutra number 30 is probably where we talks about the 5 yamas, and then from 35, 36, it seems like Patanjali is talking about the benefits of following the yamas.
Yes.
That later on, where it'll come, where it'll tactically say how to follow the 5 yamas, or
Yes,
I'm just trying to
yes.
see how this whole thing unfolds.
Yes. We're being given the reason for doing it, the reasons for and against doing it, and it will be explained in the context of the niyamas. We learn to practice the restraints in order to be able to observe, be able to do the observances. If we don't do the restraints, we can't do the observances. If we can't do the observances, we cannot make spiritual progress, which Patanjali defines as replacing old mental impressions of how we should think, speak, and act with new mental impressions of how we should think, speak, and act, and behaving accordingly. So this is the way this will be introduced, Bhaskar. That's a very good observation. Yes, the yamas are being expounded now, the restraints, and so now, as we go on, we'll get to the niyamas, the observances that replace this self-centered and constantly agitated way of thinking. Why constantly agitated? Because you're seeing everything in terms of how it affects you, how it advantages you or disadvantages you. And that's what leads to these, the practice of harmfulness, being harmful to others and being untruthful, and the other yamas. Okay, Cindy, please read on.
This is the commentary on 36. An ordinary man is said to be truthful when his words correspond to the facts of which he speaks. And when a man becomes perfected in truthfulness, he gains control, so to speak, of the truth. He no longer has to obey facts, facts obey him. He cannot think or even dream a lie. Everything he says becomes true. If he blesses someone, that person is blessed, no matter whether the blessing was deserved or not. He has, in other words, the power of conferring the fruits of good deeds in a manner which is not subject to the law of karma. He can also perform miraculous cures by simply telling the sick man that he is well. Wow.
Any comments or questions about what the Swami has said?
I think, Brother Shankara, I heard that Jesus Christ also performed miraculous cures without any medicine by visiting people, by touching people. Do
Well,
that.
yes,
When
exactly. That's exactly
even
what happened.
even
And
Hindu sages did that.
what did he say? He said, "It is your faith that this can be done that has produced the effect." And so what it tells us is that faith, this steadfastness to the truth, this faith in the truth, is more powerful than karma. And Holy Mother speaks of this in
Yes.
her utterances as related in the stories about her. But the story of the Roman centurion in the Gospels is so telling. This Roman centurion comes to Jesus and he's miles away from his home. How many miles? I don't recall if it's said. Anyway, he's miles and miles away from there. And he finds Jesus and he says, cure my servant, please. My servant is ill and I love him and I don't want to lose him. The servant, of course, was a Hebrew, not a Roman. And Jesus says, by your faith, what you've asked for is accomplished. And what the centurion had said that produced this response from Jesus was, I am a commander of people. If I say do this, do that, they must do it. I know that you are a commander of what we would call the gunas, of the forces that create, sustain, and transform the universe. That Jesus was in possession of those powers. The centurion believed this without question. It's saying, I believe it because I have this power over men. You have this power over the forces of nature. And so Jesus said, it is by your faith that the cure has been accomplished. And when the centurion got home, he found that the man had indeed been cured at the time that he was with Jesus. So this is where I brought up Swahananda last week, that Swahananda had developed this power because of his steadfastness to the truth and his complete inability to be anything but completely, it goes way beyond corresponding to the facts. But it went into the subtle realms of being. So anyway, that's anything else about this particular aspect of what appear to be miracles, but they're not miracles at all. They are simply the truth manifesting itself above the control of the gunas, which are what are responsible for karma.
It's like he's saying that this perfected person, person with perfected truthfulness is completely in tune with what really is.
Exactly. Without intending it,
Yeah,
without it being an effort.
you can't do it by effort.
It, it is a spontaneous act of not doing.
Mhm.
Mm.
And therein lies the power.
Therein lies
They're
the
always power grabbing, but what they're
right.
coming away with ain't power, really. It's
Yes.
balance
When
and
we
truth.
try to control things, they escape our grasp. This is the story of Tantalus. You know, when we try to control things, he tried to control things, got caught at it, and was punished for it, and spent the rest of his incarnation not being able to control anything. So if you want to know what I'm talking about, just look up the story of Tantalus. Yes, Bhaskar.
So the other takeaway here seems like if you are actually going in the path of meditation and you want to be truthful, etc., you also need to be careful as to what you say, because it could start manifesting and you don't want inadvertently to cause something.
You reach this state, yes. And I'm told you know it when you reach this state, because things do begin to happen in what other ways other people would regard as mysterious ways. So yes, but we have to, Bhaskar, the important point that underlies that is we have to be careful about the power of our thoughts and our words regardless, because as was brought up in the earlier shloka, the earlier sutras, our thoughts do have power to do harm and to do good. But this power that is being talked about here in this sutra goes above the ordinary realm.
Kinds of reminds me of my grandparents when they would say in Hindi, "Sub sub bol," always talk good, do not talk bad.
Yes.
Maybe they were saying it, always talk good, because if you talk bad and something bad happens, that's not what you want.
Yes. And if you speak well of first yourself and others, if you speak well of yourself, you will be able to speak well of others. Then that has a very auspicious effect in the world. It produces a kind of radiance that is very welcoming. It's called sattva. That when you speak in a sattvic way, in a way that is revealing what is so, the truth, then this has an auspicious effect in the world. And this is why every little drop we can put in the bucket of that radiance is very, very important. Thank you, Bhaskar.
Mhm.
Anything else from anyone? Okay, please read on, dear.
Sorry, needed to unmute. Okay, number 37. When a man becomes steadfast in his abstention from theft, all wealth comes to him. Again, 37. When a man becomes steadfast in his abstention from theft, all wealth comes to him.
Okay, please read the commentary.
This aphorism can be explained in two ways. In the first place, when a man becomes free from all feelings of covetousness, he no longer experiences the lack of anything. He is therefore in the same situation as the richest man on earth. Secondly, it is true that a lack of desire for material benefits actually seems, in many cases, to attract those benefits. As Vivekananda put it, the more you fly from nature, the more she follows you. And if you do not care for her at all, she becomes your slave. That's the end of that.
Now, this is very potent. All of this is very potent, but this is very potent indeed. It is only the open hand that can receive. If you are open-handed, not grasping for anything, then Mother will fill your hands. This is just a truth. If you are grasping, trying to get what you want, which is the yama. We're talking about yama now, about covetousness and greed. If you're trying to do that, it's self-defeating. You may become very wealthy, but you will be absolutely miserable. No one is more unhappy than the really wealthy. This was remarked on in those beautiful lyrics in the musical play Camelot. Why are the poor so happy when we're so wealthy and so unhappy? Why are the wealthy unhappy? Because they have everything to fear. They can't trust anyone who approaches them. It seems to be friendly. Is this person just a flatterer? Or they just want my money? It's horrible. Their whole life is adversarial. It's grotesque. And so, of course, one of the most dramatic storytelling about this, one of the most dramatic stories told about this, is the story of Scrooge by Charles Dickens. I won't go into it, but I encourage you to read the book A Christmas Carol or to watch the movie Scrooge, the 1951 black and white version starring Alistair Sim. It shows you what fear and doubt will produce. Scrooge was among the wealthiest men in London of his time, according to how the story goes. And yet he was totally miserable and afraid and unable to connect with other human beings in any meaningful way.
And that's what the real wealth is that connection.
Yes, exactly. And everything else flows from it spontaneously and automatically.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
Yes, that remind me another book by Swami Vivekananda, something that he mentioned, that spiritual life is for people who are not too rich and not too poor, because the too poor don't have time for, they're so busy and so worried about getting their next loaf of bread, earning a meal,
Yes,
and they don't, and the too rich are always afraid of losing their wealth and amassing and hoarding more wealth, and the fear of losing what they have, and so that they don't have time for spiritual life. The people in between, he says, the people in between, not too rich and not too poor, are most well suited for pursuing a spiritual life.
well, this is exactly what Krishna says in the Gita as well. And of course, it's perfectly easy to understand. If you're constantly struggling to keep the wolf from the door, if you're living in poverty, your mind is constantly agitated. You don't have any time for spiritual life, which is why Swami Vivekananda came up with this little aphorism: first bread, then football, then the Gita. So first we learn how to earn our daily bread, how to keep poverty from the door, to be sufficiently, we have enough food, we have enough shelter, we have enough clothing. We're that. Then football. Why football? And you've heard it said a number of times from here. Football is a metaphor for the game of life. Football is among the most complicated and demanding games that human beings play together. And so if you become skilled at football, this isn't a metaphor for being skilled at the game of life. So first bread, then football, then the Gita. And this is exactly the scenario that develops in the first 18 sections of Swami Ranganathananda's book, Divine Grace, which is another book that I encourage anyone who hasn't read it and read it more than once to read. It talks about this exact thing. How, if you're going to be a human being, use the gifts that you've been given to become successful. Not wealthy, but a success at your life. Become a success. Then you have something to renounce. You've created success that you can be proud of and renounce. And then beyond that, there is the fact that, according to the Swami, and it's the experience of many, that the divine will tap you on the shoulder and says, "You think this is wonderful? I have something more to show you." Any comments or questions from anyone? All right, dears. That'll do it for this week then. The talk tomorrow morning is "The Keys Are Yours for the Taking," which you will see is a very much a follow-on to what we've just been studying. The keys to what? The keys to the spiritual treasure box that contains the spiritual treasures gathered together by the incarnations, the great incarnations, such as Sri Ramakrishna and Jesus. And they gather them together so that they can be shared with us. And they, anyway, that's what will be talked about tomorrow morning. The keys to that spiritual treasure box are yours for the taking. And then, of course, next week we'll have our regular classes, Mother willing. Anything else from anyone? Any final thought? All right.
Yes.
Shankar,
Yes, Vijay.
Hari Om. I just want to express my admiration for the level of satya agraha that you have reached when you express that you are so tormented because of lack of openness that you felt in your expression from last week. This is absolutely heartwarming and encouraging that we are in touch with you. Thank you.
Well, it's totally, thank you, VJ, for your kind words. It is totally a two-way street. The reason I was uncomfortable is I did not want that left with you. I did not want any kind of false impression left. So it's because of the love and regard that we have for one another that this is so wonderful and sustaining. You know, it is the Divine Mother and the Divine Father looking over us as parents, sustaining and nourishing us as parents. That's what we're doing here, and it's joyous, and it is very, very gratifying indeed. So thank you, VJ, for your kind thoughts and kind words. Anything else from anyone at all? All right, dears. Until tomorrow morning, for those of you who decide to join us, if there isn't anything else, I will sign off for today. Om Hari Om. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Abir Moiti. Oh, dearly beloved Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless falsehood to thy abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Om Hari Om Tat Sat. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga Durga Durga. May we all be safe. May we all be healthy. May we all be cheerful. May we all have peace of mind. May we all be and know we are in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Om Hari Om Tat Sat. Dearly beloved, make it so. So, anything else from anyone? All right. Sayonara, dears.